bond that they have, which exists quite often between goalkeepers, particularly, Aaron Ramsdale at 23 and Ben Foster at nearly 39. There's a sort of, almost a sort of mentoring thing about them.
Yeah, it is, yeah, it's always nice. And they always say about goalkeepers, they're a kind of strange breed, and you could quite see from that interview that...
Are they as strange as they used to be?
I think they're still weird.
Yeah.
I think they're still weird. But no, I mean, Ben Foster, what a career he's had, fantastic. But the likes of Ramsdale as well, who's had kind of adversity in his career, you'd have to say early on, but he's come back. Wow, what a performance he's put in this season for Arsenal. But you can quite clearly see there that if you want to look up to someone and have a conversation with, I think for Aaron talking to Ben is a fantastic. You can see the link there, you can see the respect there. I think that's quite a big thing as well. But both have put in really good performances. Ben at his age, as you said, nearly 39, and Aaron Ramsdale. A lot of people questioned him when he went to Arsenal for the fee, and I think he'd had back-to-back relegations. A lot of people thought, I can't quite understand it, but I mean, again, Arsenal's recruitment by bringing him in, right character, right mentality, fantastic shot stopper. It's worked out well, but it was a really nice interview seeing them two together. Did
you have someone like that when you were a young player, and did you do that for someone else later on?
Yeah, I mean, I had it kind of with when I was at Ipswich Town, like Marcus Stewart, Matt Holland. I was always talking to him, always getting a bit of advice from him. They were probably the ones that I looked at probably the most. And then as you get older, the kind of culture changed. Like you try and help some of the young players, but a lot of the young players nowadays, they think they know it all, don't they? So, I mean, they'd probably say the same about me when I was younger.
I don't think life has changed that much. I think that's just always the perspective.
But no, you always try and help them out and go out your way just to try and give a little bit of advice. But as I said, it's always nice to kind of encourage and help the ones that are coming up behind you. But as I said, certainly for me, the likes of Matt Holland, who you can always go to, even now, to be fair, I give him a little phone call here and there, I see him when he pops into to work and stuff. It's always good to get a little bit of advice in kind of any walk of life, really, isn't it?
Yeah. What about you, Karen?
Similar to Darren, when the young players, and I've turned into like a senior player, and the young players, you're trying to give them advice and you're thinking, oh, that was so me and so annoying, because people told me the same thing and I'm like, please listen, because Rachel Yankee tried to teach that to me, and now I'm trying to teach like a Lauren Hemp, like learn about this, do this, and they just don't get it, because it's that saying, if you knew now what you knew then, that saying is really familiar to me, but you can only go through it with experience. But it is really nice, as he says, that goalkeeper union.
Yeah.
They are kind of tight-knitted, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, and as you say, Ben Foster has had a fantastic career already. Aaron Ramsdale's is still very much in front of him. One of the things that you picked up on there was his character, because that's really come to the fore in his time at Arsenal. He's getting the crowd going and he's having jokes and he doesn't seem a keeper that's kind of separate from the rest of the group. He's right in the thick of it.
No, he's definitely engaged himself as part of the team, but also with the reaction to the supporters. I think people are even talking about him possibly being a future Arsenal captain, the way he's conducted himself in his first season. I think, when they signed him, we were all wondering, was that the best use of the money available? But it's turned out to be a fantastic transfer. Leno obviously will probably go in the summer, and then he's cemented himself as number one. But I think he's brought, as I think you're alluding to, is he's just brought personality to the team as well. It's a young team. He fits into that group very, very well. But he is a character. He's clearly got a bit about him. He's vocal. He imposes himself on the pitch and obviously off the pitch as well. So I think in terms of what they need to do is grow as a squad, he's going to be very central to that.
Do you know what, Kels? He was exactly what they needed at that time as well, because Leno, I think a lot of people weren't really sure about him. And I'm sure when even Arsenal fans would probably have to admit that he's surprised them as well, because there have been a lot of them that have gone 25 million, I think it was, on Ramsdale. He's just been relegated. I don't understand why they've done it. But it wasn't just about his goalkeeping ability, as you said, it was about his leadership, about his character. And he's somebody, every single game you watch him, when he's kind of engaging with the away fans, where they're giving him a bit of stick, he's loving it, making saves, the home fans. And I think he is in the running for being future Arsenal captain, not England captain, Arsenal captain, because he's what you call a proper leader. He reminds me of the old guard of Arsenal, not this kind of new crop where not soft, but a little bit, you don't quite know what you're going to get.
Nice.
A bit too nice. But I think Arteta, first thing, is identified, well, we need a few more characters like this, which is why they went and tried to get a Ramsdale, but you'd have to say he's been worth absolutely every single penny.
Do you know where, in the pandemic, I went to an under-21 game and there was no one in the crowd. And that's really good, because you hear everything. And he was in goal, and he shouted and commanded the whole game. He was leading, giving information, giving encouragement. He just did not pipe down. And that's what you want to see. And I don't think there's been a goalkeeper in that time where there was no fans in that I heard that were as vocal as Aaron Ramsdale. And I read yesterday that the reason why they signed him is probably the reason why everyone thought, don't sign him. Arsenal said that he had back-to-back relegations, but they saw resilience in him, and that didn't fear them. That actually made them want to sign him because they knew he could bounce back. They knew that he could shout, he could command, he could lead, and nothing fazed him, and that's why they went after him and the character. And I thought that was really interesting, because if I was recruiting, I'm going back-to-back relegations, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
But it actually went in his favour, and arguably sign of the season, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, for the impact that he's had at Arsenal, been brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the detail that clubs go into now as part of the transfer process. It's not just about technical analysis of him as a goalkeeper. It's about what role he'll have in it. And it was always done. You know, there was always but it was more informal, asking around, is he a decent guy?
Yeah.
But that is incredible.
No, I think they
attention.
do a lot of psychological profiling now, don't they? They actually employ people to look at the kind of the character of the player psychologically, whether he's robust or whether he can deal with these sorts of things. As Karen says, you know, they looked at that and how he reacted to those situations, and actually thought, well, actually, no, somebody can deal with pressure, for example. Obviously, doesn't faze him. He doesn't lose any belief in his ability. You know, he's got himself back into the England squad. You know, I think all of those things will count in his favour. Okay, he's playing in underperforming teams, but actually that in itself was good experience for him, you know, as well, to deal with those situations where he's under a lot of scrutiny and so on and so forth. So I think he's got that resilience, and obviously then to make the step up as a young goalkeeper as well. He's very, very young to be playing first choice goalkeeper at a club like Arsenal. Yeah. You know, so he's obviously got all those character attributes. But you're absolutely right. I think, you know, clubs look at all sorts of aspects. Say before it was like a manager just ring around, is he a good guy or not? But now they're actually looking at it much more scientifically.
Yeah, and it's really worked out for Arsenal. Got them in a really good position in the table, as we've touched on earlier when we were talking about the race for the top four. If they win their games in hand, then they're really comfortable in that setup. They're taking on Watford at the weekend, who find themselves in all kinds of trouble. It felt maybe as though the ship had been slightly steadied at points, but it's not really been a sustained consistency of results for them.
No, I mean, for Watford, when they assigned Roy Hodgson, I thought perfect for what they needed, because I don't think their problem is going forward and scoring goals, because I think they've got the players that can catch fire, the likes of Emmanuel Dennis, Josh King, João Pedro, Ismail Assar. So I never thought it was the issue, but it defensively was the problem. But I think when Roy went there, I said, you know what, I fancy Watford to stay up straight. Before they even kicked the ball, I fancied Watford to stay up, because I just thought he'd make them defensively solid. A little bit like what he did at Crystal Palace. Maybe weren't particularly great to watch, but you knew exactly what you're going to get. Every player knew their role. And it just hasn't worked out that way, and they're still shipping goals. I know they got the point at Old Trafford, but let's be honest, they should have been beat 5. But it was poor finishing from United. But I still give them a chance just because I trust Roy. But at some stage, the players at the top end of the pitch have got to find a way of getting goals, because they've got the quality and the players to do it, but they've got to start winning games and winning consecutive games, putting a bit of consistency together.
If it looked at, early on there was the 0-0 draw against Burnley. There was only one conceded against West Ham, and I know West Ham was already starting to kind of tip further away in that stage. Couple of goals conceded by Brighton, then they get the win, and then 4 conceded at Crystal Palace, a goalless draw against Manchester United, which, as Darren said, they conceded plenty of shooting opportunities for United in that one.
I agree. I think it was the right person, just not the time. I think if they'd brought him in earlier, I think then you could have gone into that run of games more defensively sound. And what Roy Hodgson and Ray obviously do is they just spend so many hours on the training pitch getting you into shape, getting your distances right, shouting to you at what he needs from you, but that takes time. And I felt it's just too little too late. If they'd brought him in a little bit earlier, then I think they would have had a better chance, because I agree, they've got the attacking players. But when they lost, I was at the game where they lost against Norwich, it was because defensively they were all over the shop, because there wasn't a togetherness or resilience in terms of when they conceded. So if he'd have been there earlier, stopped that, I think they would have been fine. So I think it's a little bit too late for them personally. Yeah,
but as you said, that clear message that comes with Roy Hodgson, it isn't always popular. No. And players don't necessarily talk about loving training under Roy. I just wonder if in a relegation battle, when there is so much noise and chaos and worry from the players, if that clear message, that clear plan, that clear communication from Roy Hodgson, if that can actually be a relief, if it can take some of the pressure off the players, which is, look, you might not be doing anything very glamorous, but you know what you're going to be doing. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think a lot of the players in that dressing room will understand what Roy's all about. I mean, when someone like that, who's been in the game for as long as he has, managed at the highest level, I think that commands respect. And certainly when you're sitting rock bottom, second from bottom in the league, I don't think you've got any choice but to listen to Roy. And you're right, maybe a lot of other managers might have gone in there with all this enthusiasm, do this, do that, shouting and barking, and the message might have got lost. With Roy, he just goes in there calmly, puts the players into position to kind of succeed, try and keep clean sheets. And yeah, Karen was saying there about the timing. I understand the timing, but I think because pretty much everyone else at the bottom has been horrific this season as well, that's what given him the opportunity. That's why I thought, out of all the teams at the bottom, they've got the most firepower, Watford. If you look at the 4 forwards that they've got, at any given moment they can score goals. So that's why I still give them the opportunity. But it is how quickly they can kind of adjust to Roy's type of philosophy on football. And it might be a bit boring. I mean, I've heard players that have worked with Roy before. It can be a little bit like you want to do a little bit more.
That's kind of why I'm asking, because I think if you feel as a team or as an individual player that you're ready to kick on, then there might not be the room to have that freedom to express yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're in a nervy situation, it could actually be quite comforting.
Yeah,
you
quite
can
calming.
imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Roy's all excitement. He's just calm, putting you in positions. And even when, as you said there, where you might want to go and do a bit more, do this and do that, he's like, listen, there'll be plenty of time for that. But first and foremost, let's get results on the board. Let's obviously be a bit more hard to beat. Won't be enjoyable. But at the end of the day, for these Watford players, they don't want to be going back to the Championship. That has got to be at the forefront of their mind. You want to stay in the best league in the world, which is the Premier League. So for me, they've got to get on board with what Roy wants to do and do it quickly.
Yeah, Watford really need to tighten up. It's clear where they need to improve,
Exactly.
and Roy Hodgson will be working on that. For Arsenal, as you said earlier, Jason, you can look at that first choice, starting 11, and think there's definitely the seeds of something there.
Oh, definitely. I think next season, they're going to be a really good team. I think if they get the business done in the summer, which they hopefully will plan to do, obviously it's clear where they're going to have to strengthen. If they get that done in the right way, and I think the way they're heading at the moment, they probably will. It was interesting they didn't do anything in January. They probably didn't rush into something. They probably obviously tried Vlahovic, but that was never really going to work. But that's the sort of level of player they want to try and get in, and I understand that. So, but what's interesting with Arsenal is that an opportunity suddenly arisen that they didn't expect. And they were talking top 6 at best this season. Suddenly that opportunity arises to be top 4, which changes again the financial situation at the club and the opportunities available to bring in better players. What will be fascinating is can they cope with that pressure now of suddenly being in a situation they didn't expect to be in, with a young team, with a relatively inexperienced manager, but with no distractions apart from the league. I mean, the one thing they've got in their favour is that they're out of all the cups, they're not in Europe. That's not where they want to be, but actually it's given them momentum of actually just playing rhythm of league games, so they have that. They should do it, really, I think. They should do it, but I'm not sure they will. So it'll be quite interesting to see how they then deal with that. But the direction of travel for Arsenal is absolutely right for me. I do like what Arteta's done. I think at times maybe the one criticism I would have of him is possibly his man management. Hasn't necessarily always worked, but that's because he's a young coach and so on and so forth, and it's not been the easiest dressing room. But if you look at the team now as opposed to the team inherited, I think it looks in good shape.
Yeah, and I know we touched on this earlier about their longer term plan and the ability to stick with a plan, because when it wasn't going well for Arsenal, they had players coming to the end of long contracts on far too big contracts that they couldn't offload. He seems to have sorted out that side of things as well, that the sort of negative noise has
whether or not he was right to sort of move out Aubameyang, he did it. That was his decision and he did it. And okay, Aubameyang's doing very well at Barcelona, but he wasn't playing well at Arsenal, and maybe that was causing an issue in the dressing room, especially with him being the captain. So he's moved the player on. He's made a decision there. Lacazette coming to the end of his contract, he will probably also go. It gives them more room in terms of the budget, in terms of all that. So he clearly has a plan. Arsenal are following that plan. They're totally in with him. He's under no pressure in terms of his own situation. His relationship with the director of football is very, very strong. So I can see all of that being structurally very, very good. So what the thing that's different this season is we didn't expect them to be in the top 4 race, and they are. They're right in it. Can they cope with it? And that's the question. If he doesn't get 4th place, it will be a bit of a mark against him. But I think generally, if I was an Arsenal supporter, I would be quite pleased with the way they're going at the moment.
Yeah, and that's always the danger, isn't it? When you start setting your targets at the start of the season, and then they change midway through, and suddenly what would have been success feels like a failure for Arsenal. So there they are in 6th place at the moment. As I said, there were only 24 games played, so 3 fewer than Manchester United and West Ham above them, and actually 1 less than Chelsea. So they could go to within a couple of points of them in 3rd place as well, if they win, as we keep saying, their games in hand. But they have got that very youthful sort of spine. It wasn't necessarily by design. It kind of feels as though it came a bit about came about a bit by default. I gave myself a really stupid sentence to try and say that, but a little bit by default, in that those players were brought in because of injuries and actually were outperforming the more established ones.
Yeah, and that was Arsenal always were great at bringing through young talent, plucking out Cesc Fabregas, and that was always historically, they were always ahead in terms of scouting, and then everyone else kind of caught up with them. The young players came through. I followed them in the Europa when I first saw, Saka, Smith Rowe come through, and I'm like, they're crushing it. They're absolutely, they look energised, they look hungry, they look great. And then they've got a manager that also reflects that, and he's playing them, he's doing well, and the recruitment is under a certain age, certain thresholds that eventually if they did want to sell them, they could, or really develop them and keep them there for a long period of time. I agree, they're going in the right direction. If I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm thinking great things ahead, and they're going in absolutely the right direction. And, it's in their hands at the moment, and that's all you want. I know Darren, part of me agrees in terms of you always want points on the board, but when it's in your hands, and sometimes when you've got young players, they don't fear anything. They can just go, and maybe that's why they're overachieving, because the young players are like, we're not bothered anymore. Nothing, when you're a young player, you just go, express. It's when you get a little bit older and there's an expectation, then that's where you have to learn to adapt. But right now, they should just go enjoy it, and games in hands, and just go for it.
Do you know what? It's strength and depth of the squad as well, though. That's where my concerns a little bit about Arsenal, because we've seen them before put runs together, beat the teams that they really should beat, and then when they put in a performance, something will let them down, whether it be discipline or an injury. And that's why I think, well, have they got the right temperament to kind of get them over the line? Because they're in prime position, as you said there, win the games in hand, they go into that top four. But you can't help, because of the last few seasons with Arsenal, waiting for the wheels to come off. And it's horrible to say, but we've seen it. Every time, even this season, you think, right, they're in for a great chance to play well, putting performances together. I mean, Manchester City, a game at the Emirates, fantastic, played really well, probably the performance of the season by some distance. Then they let themselves down with a red card. It happens time and time again. Liverpool game, they're in the game, it's another red card. So if they can find a way of kind of sorting out the discipline era and then keeping the squad together and have a bit of luck, because you need a bit of luck with no injuries, suspensions, then they've got themselves a great chance. But I'm still a bit reserved at the minute.
Should be all right against Watford, though, shouldn't they?
But these are the type of games where, because if you look at the game against
when you say that.
the game against Watford, Arsenal weren't particularly great at all. I know they got the result in the end, but they weren't great. And you think, well, you need a bit more. But they won the game ultimately at the end of the day. They would expect to be going into this game against Watford, winning the game, but then Watford will take great credit from the point that they got against Manchester United. So I'd expect Arsenal to win, but again, I'm not holding my breath. I'm waiting for something to kind of drastically go.
Do you think it could be a frustrating sort of afternoon for Arsenal against Watford?
Yeah, maybe, because you're right. You sitting against Arsenal, have they got the firepower to shoot themselves out of it? Lacazette's been brilliant as a leader, as a role model to the younger players, as a captain. I think he's been tremendous. But one thing about him, he just doesn't score enough goals. Saka, as brilliant as he has been, does he get enough goals? Smith Rowe's another one. Does he get enough goals? I'm just not quite sure. I've also got the firepower in attacking areas to really go in and grab that top four. But as you said there, Kels, they should beat Watford.
Yeah, should. There's always a helpful word in the build-up to these.
Yeah, no, I think they will beat Watford. It's not going to be easy going there for sure, but I think, again, I do think they've got a little bit of magic. I do think they can, and I back the young players ever since I've seen them. Maybe that's because I enjoy seeing youth coming through. I like that, and I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think maybe them and Man United probably do have that little bit more experience, and that might be
they've got more X factor as well, maybe.
I do love the youth, but maybe it will just be the ruthless side and the experience of a Ronaldo or someone that they might not have. Even though I love the youth, that might be their Achilles heel.
Yeah, and I wonder if the inconsistency that you're talking about and that inability to break sides down when it really matters is just a product of having a lot of young players in that side. A lot of inexperienced players as well, because you don't necessarily, just because you're young doesn't mean you haven't got a lot of experience, but these are young and inexperienced.
Really young and inexperienced. In a situation like this is the first time they've really experienced it. Do you know what I mean? Going for that top four, trying to get themselves back into the Champions League. And as Karen was saying there, you look at the teams that are around them, you look at the likes of Manchester United, they've just got maybe X-factor players. I'm not saying that Arsenal haven't, they've got really good youngsters, but you look at Bruno Fernandes, Pogba, you talk about guys who've won World Cups, Ronaldo, arguably the greatest goal scorer we've ever seen. It just takes a little bit of magic and bang, they win a game. So that's where Manchester United maybe have got the slight edge, but as a collective unit and what Arsenal are doing with their youngsters and the no fear factor that they're playing with, they give themselves a great opportunity.
Yeah, and then you've got teams in there like West Ham who have struggled to regain their early season form. You've got Tottenham, I don't know. I have no idea what to say about Tottenham. Who are they?
Yeah, again, the inconsistencies again, you'd have to say.
Not, who are you? Not like that, but yeah.
But again, you look at their team, they've got players in their squad, Kane, Son, and then even Lucas Moura we've seen in big moments produce something special, so they're going to be in the mix for sure. The one team, as you said there, I would worry about maybe falling completely out of that would be West Ham, and that's because obviously out of the FA Cup now, got Europa coming up against Sevilla, that could be a defeat for them, and then with that small squad, trying to compete on all fronts, I think it might be a bit too much for them.
Jason, briefly, thoughts on the top four race at this stage?
I mean, Tottenham has surprised me how volatile it's all been. I thought when Antonio Conte went in there, he would stabilise it much more and he'd grind out the results. But the volatility is extraordinary. How, you go the lurch from one brilliant result to a terrible performance. And I think the manager himself really needs to calm down. Personally, I think in Tottenham.
We don't really want him.
Well, no, for his own good.
I mean,
well, speaking to somebody who knows him quite well, I mean, the stuff he came out with the other day about, how it was all part of his strategy to be like this, that's rubbish. Basically.
He's just getting caught up in the emotion of the occasion. It's going to get even more emotional between now and the end of the season. Jason, Karen, thank you very much. I don't know if you're back next week. Either way, it'll be Darren or it'll be Righty, but either way, you'll love it, I promise. We'll see you at the same time next week. For now, though, from all of us, bye-bye.
Arsenal can keep the pressure on Manchester United and Chelsea in the race for a top four finish in the Premier League by beating Watford at Vicarage Road on Monday. It won't be easy given the Gunners' dire away record in England's top flight this season. Watford are also in fine form, having recently reached the FA Cup final. The Hornets won this fixture last season and have the players to take advantage of a fatigued Arsenal squad likely thinking about Thursday's trip to Napoli in the UEFA Europa League. Keeping a clean sheet away from home is something Arsenal have managed just once in 25 fixtures, the 1-0 win over Huddersfield Town to close last season and end Arsene Wenger's near 22 years in charge, according to TalkSport's Billy Hawkins. It's a woeful statistic for a club with ambitions of being in next season's UEFA Champions League. Head coach Unai Emery was hired to get Arsenal back into Europe's elite club competition, and the Spaniard revealed how he's talked to the players about their away day blues. Per Goals Charles Watts, we spoke a lot about that and what we need to win, to improve, to create. We need sometimes patience to create and improve the spirit. Emery's immediate challenge will be to refresh his squad ahead of Thursday's quarter-final second leg against Napoli. Aaron Ramsey opened the scoring when the Gunners beat the Serie A outfit 2-0 at the Emirates Stadium, and his form will determine how Arsenal's season ends.